Hey everyone, Professor Ray here. We're going to talk a little bit about the Vernier Centripetal force apparatus that's going to be used in lab, just an introduction to how this apparatus works. So we have kind of a couple new tools today. One is the apparatus itself, but we're going to be measuring the force on one of these masses that's going to be moving around in a circle at uniform circular motion, which means it's moving at a constant speed. So not having wires would be incredibly helpful for this. So we have a new force sensor that's a Go Direct force sensor that you'll have to connect via Bluetooth. You'll have a separate video to watch for that. But it may be charging when you come in. And so as this thing's moving around, that wire you can see is going to get wrapped around and around and around and around. So we want to make sure that before we start taking any measurements and pushing buttons to make this go around in circles relatively fast, that you unhook and uncharge that apparatus. Now you'll want to plug it back in when you're all done so that it's charging and ready to go for the next group. So now I have this apparatus that's free to rotate about in a circle. Don't have to worry about wires. Now, moves in a circle. If you just push it, it's not going to just go around and around and around because it's connected to this motor by this gasket, you could say. There's a couple of different pulleys that it could be wrapped around. You can change it to a different pulley or leave it where it is. Usually it's just the top one or the bottom one. Change the pulley to the bottom, change the pulley up to the top. You can't see me doing that very well in that picture. Sorry about that, but it's not the most terribly important thing. But this motor is run by this little controller. If you press the button, that will make this guy go round and around and around. And you control the speed by moving this knob in a clockwise or counterclockwise way. As you can see, it goes from a small to a large thickness. The larger the thickness, the faster it's going to go. So I'm going to start this on the slow thickness. I'm going to plug it in. And then if I press play, nothing happens because there's no current to get this thing going. But if I take this and I turn it, rotate it, and if I push play, now it starts to rotate. And of course, if I keep my hands all free, you want to keep your hands free from the rotation. Don't bop it. As you turn the knob, it'll go faster or slower. But the key is that it's moving at a constant velocity as it's going around and around and around and around. And I can change that velocity simply by changing or turning this dial, this knob. Okay, so that's one part of the apparatus that you can change and adjust simply by using this little controller. There's a few other things you can change on this. One will be the amount of mass that you put in that carrier. There's 50, 100, 100, so a total of 250 could go in here. You could just do 200, you could do 250, you could do 100, you could do 150, you could just do 50, you could do 250. Now, there's all sorts of different combinations. But you have one of these, which is connected to the force sensor here. It's kind of a free to slide on this one. So that as this thing is sliding out, the force sensor has a little string that keeps it in the circular motion. So this is what's measuring that force, that inward force that's keeping this mass in circular motion. Otherwise, if that force wasn't there, what's going to happen? I press this and it just slides all the way to the end. It slides all the way to the end because that's the way it wants to keep going. But if I hook it onto the force sensor is now going to read the force on that mass as it is trying to keep it in a circular path, circular motion. This other guy here is for a counterbalance. If we just had this, it wouldn't be able to rotate as easily, as freely. It's a way of kind of helping out our motor so that it's a nice, easy rotation. We'll learn more about like inertia and that with torque. This guy here, you can move it around by undoing those bolts, and you can move it back and forth as you need to. to try to match as best as you can the radial distance. I think that's the easiest way to do it. You'll see there's a little peak right here that will tell you where it is lined up, this kind of the center of the mass and the carriage itself. If for some reason you needed to take the thing off of the bar here, there's a bolt here. You can take this off. And then you're able to remove, the whole thing. Oh, probably didn't want to do that. If you drop anything off, just make sure you replace it as it was. There we go. The nut fell off on that side, so I just unscrewed it too much. You don't need to unscrew it all the way in order for this thing to slide. So now, there it is. So there are the little nuts right there. You can maybe see, maybe not. Sorry, but you can take that off, put it back on as you need. Oops. And then we can lock this back up. All right. I don't think there's anything else that we need to talk about. If you wanted to change the distance that the mass is located away from the center of your circle, you're going to have to undo the bolt, tightening down the force sensor, and then you can rotate this, move him, slide him down. It's kind of a little difficult sometimes to slide, but you can slide it down where it needs to go. Obviously, you don't want it to go all the way down because then it's stuck on the bottom. You're not going to have any force, but you want to have it at least a distance away from the edge. Then you can tighten that back down. Now that this is going to stay it in, so it's at a different distance away from the center of the circle. And then you want to move your counterbalance to match. Okay, I think that's a decent first crash course on an introduction to the apparatus, power, how you can control the velocity, making it go slow, making it go fast by changing the dial, making it go by pressing the button. You want to make sure your masses are equal distance away. You can do that by tightening the bolts, taking the bolts, loosening them, tightening them where they need to be for the counterbalance. And if you need to change the mass that you're actually measuring the force on, you take the nut and you move that where the location of the force sensor is located. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone.